Today we're looking at 1. Satisfactory factoring. Factoring polynomials to identify zeros. The student works 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, let's take a look at the next page. Getting started. Factor tree factory. At the factor tree factory, a factor machine takes any whole number as input and output as one of its factor pairs. Suppose the number 24 is entered into the machine. What factor pairs might you see as the output? Okay, so the outputs would be 1 times 24 is 24, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times 8 is 24, 4 times 6 is 24, 5 doesn't work, 6 times 4 is 24, 7 doesn't work, 8 times 3 is 24. B. How do you know whether two numbers are a factor pair of 24? Two numbers are a factor pair of 24 if they are integers whose product is 24. All right, go ahead and mark out C, and then go ahead and mark out 2. All right, let's take a look at the next page. All right, go ahead and mark out 3A and B. Number 4. If you know a factor of a given whole number, how can you determine another factor? If you know a factor of a number, you can divide the number by the factor to determine another factor. 5. What is the remainder when you divide a whole number by any of its factors? Explain your reasoning. The remainder is 0. If a number is a factor of another number, it divides into the number evenly without a remainder. Six, create a factor tree to show the prime factorization of each number. So 66 can be broken down into 2 times 33. And 33 can be broken down to 3 times 11. So 66 equals 2 times 3 times 11. All right, let's take a look at B, 210. 210 can be written as 21 times 10. Well, 21 can be broken down to 3 times 7, and 10 can be written as 2 times 5. So 210 can be written as 2 times 3 times 5 times 7. All right, go ahead and finish it up. Let's take a look at the next page. Activity 1.1, factoring out a GCF. Throughout your previous mathematical courses, you have applied the idea that a whole number can be decomposed into a product of its factors to solve a variety of problems. In this lesson, you will explore different methods of decomposing a polynomial into a product of its factors. Once you have factored polynomial, you can use the factors to identify the zeros and then use the zeros to sketch a graph. To begin factoring any polynomial, always look for a greatest common factor, GCF. You can factor out the greatest common factor of the polynomial and then factor what remains. 1. Factor 3x cubed plus 12x squared minus 36x to identify the zeros. Okay, first we can factor out a 3x, which is the greatest common factor, which leaves 1x squared plus 4x minus 12. And we're going to set that equal to 0. Okay, so then that becomes 3x times 2 parentheses equals 0. Now, to factor x squared, we know that x and x make x squared. Then we need to figure out what numbers multiply to give you negative 12 combined to be 4. Since the middle number is positive, the bigger number is positive. Okay, so negative 1 times 12 is negative 12. Negative 1 plus 12 is 11. That doesn't work, so let's take a look at the next combination. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. We have our negative 12 and 4, so our factors are x minus 2, x plus 6. We then set them equal to 0. So 3x equal to 0, x minus 2 equal to 0, and then x plus 6 equal to 0. Okay, we divide both sides by 3. X equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. You get x equals 2. Subtract 6 from both sides. X equals negative 6. All right. Let's go ahead and graph those. So 0, 1, 2, and negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in your graph, it's cubic. Function like so. All right, go and finish up page 464. All right, let's take a look at the next page. 2. Factor each polynomial function and identify the zeros. Then use the factors to sketch a graph of the function defined by the polynomial. Okay, so we can factor out a greatest common factor of 3x, which leaves 1x squared plus 1x minus 2. Set that equal to 0. So then we have 3x, 2 parentheses, equals 0. We know that x and x makes x squared. Now we need to figure out what numbers multiplied to give you negative 2 combined to be 1. Since the middle number is positive, the bigger number is positive. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. So we have our negative 2 and 1, so our factors are x minus 1, x plus 2. Set them equal to 0, so 3x equal to 0, x minus 1 equal to 0, x plus 2 equal to 0. Divide both sides by 3, x equals 0. Add 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Subtract 2 from both sides, x equals negative 2. So we graph our zeros. We have 0, 1, and negative 1, negative 2. And then a cubic function looks like so. Okay, go ahead and finish up number 2. Let's take a look at number, I should say, letter B. Okay, so we can factor out a greatest common factor of 2x, which leaves x plus 3. Let's set that equal to 0. So we set 2x equal to 0, and x plus 3 equal to 0. Divide both sides by 2, x equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3. So we have 0, negative 1, 2, 3. And our quadratic function looks like so. All right, go ahead and finish up B. All right, C. So we can factor out a 3, which leaves 1x squared minus 1x minus 2, and let's set that equal to 0. Now we can actually divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we're left with 1x squared minus 1x minus 2 equal to 0. And then 2 parentheses. X and x makes x squared. Now we need to figure out what numbers multiply to give you a negative 2 combined to be negative 1. Since the middle number is negative, the bigger number is negative. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. That works. So our factors are x plus 1, x minus 2. X plus 1 equal to 0. X minus 2 equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, you get x equals negative 1. Add 2 to both sides, you get x equals 2. So we have 0 at negative 1, 1, 2. So our quadratic function looks like so. Right. Go ahead and finish up B and C. Let's take a look at D. So we can factor out a greatest common factor of 10, which leaves 1x squared minus 5x minus 6. We're going to set that equal to 0. We're going to divide both sides by 10. That divides becomes 1. We're left with 1x squared minus 5x minus 6 equal to 0. 2 parentheses equal to 0. X and x. Now we need to figure out what two numbers multiply to give you negative 6 combined to be negative 5. Since the middle number is negative, the bigger number is negative. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. We have our negative 6 and negative 5, so our factors are x plus 1, x minus 6. So we set x plus 1 equal to 0, x minus 6 equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, x equals negative 1. Add 6 to both sides, x equals 6. So negative 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our quadratic function looks like so. Alright, go ahead and finish up D. Mark out 4. Let's take a look at this. Go ahead and mark out this page. Go ahead and mark out this page. Go ahead and finish up your notes. And have a wonderful Wildcat day.